The silver SUV crawled through the rain-slick streets of downtown Houston. Inside sat Julian, a man whose dark suit cost more than most people's rent. His architectural firm had just closed a deal worth millions. His phone buzzed with congratulations. His assistant kept texting updates, but Julian was not reading any of them. He was staring out the window at the wet pavement, at the people rushing under umbrellas, at the city that had made him rich but could not bring back what he had lost. 5 years. 5 years since Clara died. 5 years of raising their daughter alone. 5 years of building an empire with no one to share it with. The traffic light turned red. The car stopped. Rain drummed against the roof like impatient fingers. Julian loosened his white collar and ran a hand through his perfectly groomed hair. He looked tired. Successful but tired. His reflection in the window showed a man in his late 30s who had everything except peace. Then he saw her. An old woman was moving between the cars. She was bent over, almost folded in half. Her gray hair was wild and tangled, sticking to her face in the rain. She wore a thin, stained gray tank top that hung off her tiny frame like a rag on a skeleton. Her feet were bare against the cold, wet asphalt. Julian watched her shuffle closer. She held out her hand to each car. Most drivers looked away. Some rolled up their windows. One man waved her off like she was a stray dog. The woman kept moving, kept begging. Her lips moved, but Julian could not hear the words through the glass. She reached his window. A bony hand tapped weakly on the glass. Once, twice. Julian reached for the coins in his cup holder without thinking. He did this sometimes. Gave what he could. Clara would have wanted him to be kind. "Please, sir," the woman said. Her voice was rough and tired. It scratched through the cracked window like sandpaper. "Just a small coin. Anything to eat tonight." Julian looked up to hand her the money. Then his heart stopped. That face. The grandmother his daughter had never met. The woman who was supposed to be living in a luxury retirement community in Connecticut, surrounded by gardens and nurses and everything money could buy. "Beatrix," Julian whispered. Now he was just another rich man in an expensive car. "Please," she said again. "I have not eaten in 2 days." Julian's throat went tight. His chest felt like someone had reached inside and squeezed his lungs. This could not be real. He had seen the photos. Every month, Clara's brother sent updates. Beatrix smiling in a sunroom. Beatrix playing cards with friends. Beatrix celebrating her birthday with a fancy cake. All lies. Every single photo was a lie. The car behind him honked. The light had turned green, but Julian sat frozen, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. Beatrix moved away from his car to the next one. She did not look back. She did not know that her granddaughter's father was sitting 3 feet away, watching her beg for scraps in the rain. "Sir." His driver glanced in the rearview mirror. "Are you okay? You look like you saw a ghost." Julian's voice came out in a hoarse whisper. "Pull over. Now." "But sir, the meeting with the investors." "I said pull over." Julian's shout filled the car. His expression had changed from shock to something harder. Something dangerous. He looked like a man who had just discovered his entire world was built on lies. The driver obeyed without another word. The SUV pulled to the side of the street. Julian threw open his door and stepped into the rain. His expensive shoes splashes through puddles. His suit soaked through in seconds. He did not care. He walked toward Beatrix like a man possessed. She had moved further down the line of cars. Her thin shoulders shook from the cold. Her bare feet, swollen and cracked, left wet prints on the pavement. Up close, she looked even worse. Her arms were covered in bruises. Her tank top was practically see-through from the rain, showing ribs that stuck out like piano keys. This woman was supposed to have a $100,000 inheritance, a fully staffed retirement home, a life of comfort after losing her only daughter. Instead, she was starving on the streets of Texas, 1,000 miles from where she was supposed to be. Julian pulled out his phone with trembling fingers. He called the number he had not dialed in years. Clara's brother. the one who sent the monthly updates, the one who managed Beatrix's finances after the funeral. The phone rang 4 times before someone picked up. Julian. The voice was smooth, surprised. Well, this is unexpected. Finally calling to check in on Mother. Julian's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Where is she, Marcus? Where is Beatrix really? There was a pause. Cold, ugly pause. Then Marcus laughed. It was not a happy sound. It was the laugh of a man caught in a lie who no longer cared about hiding it. Oh, Julian, Marcus said. You finally figured it out. Took you long enough. Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching. Before we continue with this powerful story, please take a moment to subscribe to see how this unfolds. I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and say hello. I would love to greet you personally and see just how far our story is reaching. Now, let us continue and discover what Julian does next when he learns the terrible truth about what happened to Beatrix. Julian stood in the rain, phone pressed to his ear, watching Beatrix shuffle between the stopped cars. His brother-in-law's mocking laugh echoed through the speaker like poison. You finally figured it out, Marcus said again. I was wondering how long it would take. 5 years, Julian. 5 years, and you never once visited her. Never once checked in person. You just trusted the photos we sent. Julian's free hand curled into a fist. Where is the money, Marcus? The inheritance. The retirement fund. Where is it? Gone. Marcus did not even try to hide it. Spent. Every last penny. Do you know how expensive it is to maintain a certain lifestyle? The house in Connecticut, the cars, the trips abroad? Mother's money funded all of it. She had no idea, of course. We moved her to a facility first. A cheap one. Then when that got too expensive, we just let her go. Let her go. Julian's voice cracked. She is 75 years old. She is your mother. She is a burden, Marcus said coldly. She was always Clara's responsibility, and Clara died. We did what we had to do. Julian wanted to reach through the phone and wrap his hands around Marcus's throat. Instead, he watched Beatrix reach the end of the line of cars. She turned and began walking toward an alley, her bent figure disappearing into the shadows between 2 old buildings. I am going to destroy you, Julian said quietly. Every single one of you. I am going to take back everything you stole, and I am going to make sure the world knows what you did. Marcus laughed again, but this time there was nervousness underneath it. Good luck proving anything. The documents are all in order. Mother signed everything herself. Forged signatures, Julian said. I am an architect, Marcus. I work with documents every single day. I know what forgery looks like, and I have lawyers who will tear your paper trail apart. The line went silent. Then Marcus's voice came back, harder now. Stay out of this, Julian. You are not family anymore. Clara is dead. You have no legal standing. I have a daughter, Julian said. Your niece, Beatrix's only grandchild. And I have 5 years of fake photos and false reports that prove fraud. This is not a threat, Marcus. This is a promise. I am coming for you. He hung up before Marcus could respond. The rain had soaked through his suit completely now. His expensive shoes were ruined. He did not care. He walked toward the alley where Beatrix had disappeared, his heart pounding against his ribs. The alley was dark and smelled of garbage. Water dripped from fire escapes above. Julian moved carefully, stepping over broken bottles and soggy cardboard. At the end of the alley, he found a narrow passage that led under an old bridge. That is where he found her. Beatrix was sitting on a flattened cardboard box, her back against the concrete pillar. She had wrapped herself in a torn plastic bag to keep off the rain. A small pile of belongings sat beside her. A cracked cup holding a few coins. A threadbare blanket that was more holes than fabric. A faded photograph, so worn and creased he could barely make out the image. But he knew what it was. He recognized the white dress, the flowers, the smile. It was Clara's wedding photo. Julian's throat closed up. His eyes burned. This woman had been carrying a picture of her dead daughter while she begged on the streets. while her other children lived in luxury off her stolen money. While Julian sat in boardrooms and signed million-dollar deals, believing she was safe and comfortable, he approached slowly. Beatrix looked up, and for a moment, fear flashed across her face. She pulled her meager belongings closer, protecting them with her frail body. "Please," she said, "I have nothing worth taking. Please just leave me alone." Julian knelt down in front of her. The rain dripped off his hair, mixing with the tears he could no longer hold back. "Beatrix," he said softly. "It is me, Julian, Clara's husband." The old woman squinted at him. Her eyes were cloudy, struggling to focus. Then recognition sparked somewhere in their depths. Her cracked lips parted. Her hand trembled as she reached toward his face. "Julian." Her voice broke on his name. "My Clara's Julian?" He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Beatrix's face crumbled. Years of pain and loneliness poured out in a single sob. "I thought you forgot about me," she whispered. "I thought everyone forgot." Julian took her hand in his. It was ice cold, the skin paper-thin over bones that felt like they might snap. He looked down and saw her feet for the first time. They were bare, swollen, the skin cracked and bleeding in places. Months of walking on hard pavement. Months of sleeping in the cold. Months of neglect that had carved themselves into her flesh. "I did not know," he said. "Beatrix, I swear to you I did not know. They sent me photos. They told me you were happy. They told me." "Marcus," she said. The name came out like a curse. "Marcus and the others. They put me in a place first. A bad place. Then one day they stopped paying. The people there, they just put me outside. Like trash." Julian felt rage building in his chest. A cold, hard anger that settled into his bones and promised violence. "How long have you been out here?" Beatrix shook her head slowly. "I do not know anymore. The days blur together. Weeks, months. I lost count." She looked at him with those cloudy eyes, and something fierce flickered behind the exhaustion. "But I could not leave Texas, Julian. I could not leave." "Why not? Why did you not try to find me?" Beatrix's grip tightened on his hand. "Because they were planning something. Marcus and the others. I heard them talking before they abandoned me. They want your daughter, Julian. They want custody. They said you have a trust fund in her name, and if they control her, they control it." Julian's blood turned to ice. "What? They were going to wait, build a case, say you were an unfit father, too busy with work, no family support." Beatrix's voice grew stronger, fueled by the desperate need to warn him. "I stayed close because I had to watch. I had to make sure they did not take her. Your daughter, my granddaughter, the only piece of Clara I have left." Julian stared at her. This woman, this 75-year-old woman who should have been living in comfort, had chosen homelessness to protect a child she had never even met. She had starved on the streets of Houston so she could keep watch over his family from the shadows. "Come with me," he said. "Right now. I am taking you home." Beatrix hesitated. "I am dirty. I smell. I will ruin your car." Julian almost laughed. "Almost. My car is the least of my concerns, Beatrix. You are coming home. You are meeting your granddaughter. And then we are going to make them pay for what they did to you." He helped her stand. She weighed almost nothing, her tiny frame collapsing against him as her legs shook from the effort. Julian wrapped his suit jacket around her shoulders and guided her toward the alley, toward the waiting SUV, toward the life she should have had all along. The drive home felt endless. Beatrix sat in the back seat, wrapped in the emergency blanket from the trunk, staring out the window like she was seeing the world for the first time. Julian called his housekeeper and spoke in low, urgent tones. "Prepare the guest room. Heat up soup. Call a doctor." When they arrived at the house, Beatrix gasped. It was not a mansion by billionaire standards, but it was beautiful. Warm lights glowed from the windows. A garden bloomed in the front yard, even in the rain. It looked like a home. A real home. "This is where you live?" she whispered. "This is where we live," Julian said. All of us, you included. The front door opened before they reached it, and standing in the doorway, clutching a stuffed rabbit, was a little girl with dark curls and her mother's eyes. Julian's daughter, Lily, 5 years old. Beatrix stopped walking. Her hand flew to her mouth. New tears spilled down her weathered cheeks. "Papa," Lily called out. "Who is that lady? Why is she crying?" Julian knelt down to his daughter's level. "Lily, do you remember the stories I tell you about Grandma B? Mama's mama?" Lily nodded solemnly. "You said she lives far away. You said she sends love through the clouds." Julian swallowed hard. "She is not far away anymore, sweetheart. She is right here. She came to live with us." Lily looked at Beatrix. Beatrix looked at Lily. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Lily walked forward, still clutching her rabbit. She stopped in front of Beatrix and tilted her head. "You look sad, Grandma B. Are you sad?" Beatrix knelt down, ignoring the pain in her swollen feet. "I was sad," she said softly. "I was very, very sad, but not anymore." Lily smiled. It was Clara's smile. The same warmth, the same light. "Papa makes good soup when people are sad. Do you want some soup?" Beatrix laughed through her tears. It was the first time she had laughed in months. "I would love some soup." Lily took her grandmother's hand and led her inside. Julian watched them go, his heart breaking and healing at the same time. The doctor arrived 2 hours later. Julian had called in a favor, gotten the best physician in Houston to make a house call. The examination took place in the guest room, with Beatrix lying in. Julian knew before he even spoke that the news would be bad. "Mr. Julian," the doctor said quietly, "your mother-in-law is in serious condition. Severe malnutrition. Her body has been cannibalizing itself for nutrients. Her feet have multiple infections that need immediate treatment. With proper care, nutrition, and rest? Possibly. But the damage is extensive. She will need constant monitoring, medication, physical therapy for her feet, and even then, some effects may be permanent." "Whatever she needs," Julian said. "Whatever it costs. I want the best." The doctor nodded. "I will arrange everything. But Mr. Julian, I have to ask, how did this happen? How does a woman her age end up in this condition?" Julian looked toward the stairs, where he could hear Lily's voice chattering happily about her favorite books, where Beatrix was finally warm, finally safe, finally home. "Her children," he said. "Her own children did this to her." The doctor shook his head slowly. "I have seen many things in my career, but cruelty like this, it never gets easier to understand." "No," Julian agreed. "It does not. But it does get easier to punish." That night, after Lily was asleep and Beatrix was resting comfortably under the watchful eye of a hired nurse, Julian sat in his office. He pulled out files, made calls, sent emails. His architectural connections stretched across the country. He knew lawyers, investigators, people who could dig up dirt on anyone. Marcus and the others thought they were untouchable. They thought their forged documents and fake photos would protect them. They thought Julian would never find out. They were wrong. Julian worked until dawn, building his case one piece at a time. Every property they had sold in Beatrix's name. Every account they had drained. Every lie they had told. He would find it all. And when he was done, he would burn their world to the ground. But first, he had a grandmother to heal and a daughter to protect. The revenge would come later. For now, family came first. Her cheeks filled out. Her eyes grew clearer. The infections on her feet began to heal under the care of specialists Julian hired without blinking at the cost. But while Beatrix recovered, Julian worked. Every night after Lily went to bed, he sat in his office surrounded by documents, phone records, and photographs. His architectural career had given him something more valuable than money. It had given him connections, lawyers who owed him favors, investigators who knew how to dig, real estate agents who could trace property sales back through decades of paperwork. Julian called in every single favor he had ever earned. The first break came on a Tuesday morning. His investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia who had spent 20 years tracking financial fraud, arrived at his door with a thick folder tucked under her arm. Her face told Julian everything he needed to know before she even spoke. "I found it," she said. "The Connecticut house. The one you said the inheritance was supposed to pay for." Julian led her to his office and closed the door. Patricia spread the documents across his desk like a surgeon laying out instruments. Deeds, transfer papers, bank statements, a paper trail that stretched back 5 years. "The house was purchased in Beatrix's name," Patricia explained, pointing to the original deed. "Your wife set it up before she passed. The inheritance was supposed to fund the mortgage, the staff, the medical care. Everything was legitimate. Until," Julian asked. Patricia pulled out another document. "Until 8 months after the funeral. That is when the first transfer happened. Someone moved Beatrix out of the house and into a budget care facility in upstate New York. The house was rented out. The rental income went into a new account." "Whose name was on the account?" Patricia smiled grimly. "Marcus, your brother-in-law, and his sister, Diane. Both signatures on every document." Julian studied the papers. His trained eye caught what Patricia was pointing at immediately. The signatures. They were supposed to be Beatrix's, authorizing the transfers, the rentals, the eventual sale of the property. But something was wrong. "These are not her signatures," he said quietly. "No, they are not." Patricia handed him a magnifying glass. "Compare them to the original deed, signed when Beatrix was still competent and in control of her affairs. The slant is different. The pressure is inconsistent. And look at the way she writes her B. In the originals, it has a distinctive loop. In the transfer documents, it is flat. Forgeries. Every single one." Julian felt cold satisfaction settle into his chest. "Can this hold up in court? With a handwriting expert?" "Absolutely. But that is not even the best part." Patricia pulled out one final document. The sale of the house. It went through a real estate agency in Hartford. The same agency that Marcus's wife works for. They sold the property below market value to a shell company. Guess who owns the shell company? Marcus and Diane. They bought their mother's house from themselves using their mother's money. Then they sold it again at full market value and pocketed the difference. We are talking about nearly $2 million in fraud, Julian. That is federal territory. Julian gathered the documents carefully. "How long do I have before they realize we are investigating?" "Hard to say. They have been sloppy because they never expected anyone to look. But if you want to confront them directly, I would do it soon, before they have a chance to cover their tracks." Julian knew exactly where to find them. The New York Charity Gala was the social event of the season. $5,000 a plate. Black tie required. The city's elite gathered to pat themselves on the back for writing checks to causes they would forget about by morning. And according to Patricia's research, Marcus and Diane had purchased an entire table. They were spending Beatrix's stolen money to buy social status. The irony made Julian sick. He bought his own ticket. He rented a tuxedo. And on the night of the gala, he did something he had never done in 5 years as a single father. He left Lily in the care of the nurse and Beatrix and flew to New York. The ballroom was everything he expected. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, women in gowns that cost more than cars, men in suits that screamed old money. Julian moved through the crowd like a shark through still water. His eyes scanned every face until he found them. Marcus was holding court near the bar. He had gained weight since Julian last saw him. Success agreed with him. Or rather, stolen success agreed with him. Diane stood beside him, draped in diamonds that probably belonged to her mother. Julian walked toward them. People parted without knowing why. Something in his stride. Something in his expression. Something dangerous that the wealthy and comfortable instinctively recognized and avoided. Marcus saw him coming. The color drained from his face. For a moment, Julian saw the truth. The fear, the guilt, the knowledge that this moment was always coming. Julian, Marcus tried to smile. It looked like a grimace. What are you doing here? This is quite the surprise. Is it? Julian stopped 3 feet away, close enough to see the sweat beading on Marcus's forehead. I would think you were expecting me. After all, you have been stealing from my family for 5 years. Eventually, someone was going to notice. The people around them went quiet. Conversations died. Heads turned. Exactly what Julian wanted. Diane stepped forward, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Julian, darling, I do not know what you have heard, but this is hardly the place for. For what? Julian cut her off. For discussing how you forged your mother's signature on property documents? For explaining how you sold her house out from under her and left her homeless? For talking about the $2 million you stole from a 75-year-old woman who trusted you? The silence in the ballroom was absolute. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. Marcus's face twisted with desperation. You have no proof of any of that. Julian smiled. It was not a kind smile. Actually, I have extensive proof. Handwriting analysis, bank records, property transfers, a very detailed paper trail that leads directly to both of you. He paused. And I have Beatrix. Diane's composure cracked. Mother is dead. She died years ago in that facility. She is very much alive, Julian said. No thanks to you. I found her begging on the streets of Houston. Barefoot, starving, wearing rags while you stand here covered in her diamonds. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People began pulling out phones. Recording. This was exactly the kind of scandal that would spread like wildfire through New York social circles. Marcus grabbed Julian's arm. Stop this, he hissed. You are making a scene. Whatever you want, we can discuss it privately. Julian pulled his arm free. I want what you stole. Every penny. I want Beatrix's inheritance restored. I want you to face the consequences of what you did to her. She is just an old woman, Marcus spat. She was going to die anyway. What difference does it make where she lives out her final years? The words hung in the air like poison. Julian saw the horror on the faces around them. Even the most jaded socialites understood that Marcus had just condemned himself. That old woman, Julian said quietly, is the mother of your sister, the grandmother of my daughter. The only family I have left from my wife. And you threw her away like garbage so you could attend parties like this one. He turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption, but I thought you should know exactly who you are rubbing shoulders with tonight. These people are not philanthropists. They are thieves, and they are about to lose everything. Security was moving toward them now. Julian did not care. He had said what he came to say. He turned and walked toward the exit, leaving Marcus and Diane standing in the wreckage of their reputation. But he did not make it out alone. The call came 3 hours later, while Julian was still in the air flying back to Houston. His phone buzzed with a number he did not recognize. He answered anyway. Mr. Julian? The voice was professional, urgent. This is Dr. Reeves at Houston Methodist. Your mother-in-law collapsed approximately 2 hours ago. She is being stabilized, but we need to transfer her to a specialist in Washington. Her heart. Julian's blood ran cold. What happened to her heart? She has been under significant stress. The emotional trauma of the past weeks, combined with her weakened condition. She experienced a severe cardiac episode. We need your authorization for the transfer. Do whatever you need to do, Julian said immediately. Cost is not an issue. Save her. By the time he landed in Washington, Beatrix was in surgery. Julian sat in the waiting room for 6 hours. He called Lily and tried to sound calm. He called the nurse and gave instructions. He called Patricia and told her to pause all legal proceedings until further notice. None of it mattered. All that mattered was the old woman on the operating table. The woman who had slept under bridges to watch over his daughter. The woman who had carried her dead child's wedding photo through months of homelessness. The woman who deserved so much better than any of them had given her. The surgeon finally emerged near midnight. Her scrubs were wrinkled, her face exhausted but relieved. "She is stable," the surgeon said. "It was touch and go for a while. Her heart is weak, but she is a fighter. She will need weeks of recovery and careful monitoring, but she should pull through." Julian sagged in his chair. "Can I see her? She is asking for you." Beatrix looked impossibly small in the hospital bed. Machines beeped around her. Tubes ran in and out of her arms. But her eyes were open, and when she saw Julian, she tried to smile. "I heard," she whispered, "about New York, about what you said to them." Julian sat beside her bed and took her frail hand. "I should not have done it. The stress," the doctor said. "It was not you," Beatrix interrupted. "It was me. I watched the news coverage on my phone. The nurse tried to stop me, but I had to see." A tear slipped down her cheek. "You defended me, in front of all those people. You stood up for me." "Of course I did." Julian's voice cracked. "You are family." Beatrix squeezed his hand with what little strength she had. "That is why I need you to stop." Julian stared at her. "What?" "The lawsuit, the investigation, the revenge." Beatrix's eyes were pleading. "I know what they did to me. I know they deserve to be punished. But Julian, they are still my children. They are still Clara's siblings. And this war is killing me. Not just my body, my soul." "They left you to die on the streets," Julian said. "They stole everything from you." "I know." Beatrix's voice was barely audible. "And I have spent the last year consumed by anger, by hatred, by wanting them to suffer the way I suffered. But look where it got me." She gestured weakly at the machines around her. "I am in a hospital bed. I almost died. And for what? For revenge." Julian shook his head. "It is not just about revenge. It is about justice. About making sure they cannot hurt anyone else. There are other ways to do that." Beatrix reached up and touched his face. "You have given me something I never thought I would have again. A home, family, a granddaughter who calls me Grandma B and brings me drawings every morning. Is that not enough? Is that not more important than making them pay?" Julian closed his eyes. He thought about Lily, about the light in her eyes when she talked about her grandmother, about the way Beatrix laughed at Lily's jokes, even when they did not make sense, about the family they had built from the ashes of tragedy. "What do you want me to do?" he asked finally. "Let them go," Beatrix said. "Not because they deserve forgiveness, but because I deserve peace. Because Lily deserves a family that is not torn apart by hatred. Because Clara would have wanted us to heal, not to keep hurting each other." Julian sat in silence for a long time. Every instinct screamed at him to refuse. Marcus and Diane deserved to pay. They deserved to lose everything the way Beatrix had lost everything. But Beatrix was right. The revenge was consuming him. It had almost killed her. And it would poison Lily's childhood if he let it. "Okay," he said at last. "I will stop the lawsuit, but I am not letting them off completely. They will sign over whatever remains of your inheritance. They will never contact you or Lily again. And if they ever try anything, I will release everything to the press and the authorities." Beatrix nodded slowly. "That is fair. That is more than fair." Julian leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Rest now. I will handle everything." The settlement took 3 months to negotiate. Marcus and Diane, facing the threat of federal prosecution and social annihilation, agreed to Julian's terms. They surrendered what was left of Beatrix's money. They signed away any claim to Lily or her trust fund. They disappeared from Julian's life as thoroughly as if they had never existed. But Julian did not stop there. The money recovered from the siblings became the seed for something bigger. Julian partnered with his architectural firm and began designing a new kind of facility. Not a cold institution where elderly people were forgotten, but a real community, warm, safe, filled with gardens and light and people who actually cared. He called it the Beatrix Legacy. The first safe haven opened in Houston, 2 blocks from where Julian had found Beatrix begging in the rain. It had 20 apartments for seniors who had been abandoned, neglected, or abused by their families. It had medical staff on call around the clock. It had a garden where residents could grow flowers if they wanted, or just sit in the sun and remember better days. Beatrix cut the ribbon at the opening ceremony. She stood tall in a dress Julian had bought her hair clean and silver, her eyes clear and bright. Lily held her hand the entire time. Within a year, there were safe havens in 5 cities. Within 3 years, there were 20. Julian used his architectural connections to secure funding, his business skills to manage the operations, and his personal story to raise awareness. He became an advocate, a speaker, a voice for the voiceless. He testified before Congress about elder abuse. He appeared on news programs to share Beatrix's story. He wrote articles and gave interviews and refused to let the world forget how easily families could fail the people who needed them most. Beatrix lived to see it all. She spent her remaining years in Julian's home, surrounded by people who loved her. She watched Lily grow from a curious 5-year-old into a compassionate young woman who volunteered at the safe havens every summer. She got to be the grandmother she never thought she would be. On the night before Beatrix passed away, peaceful and content at the age of 82, she held Julian's hand one last time. "Thank you," she whispered, "for finding me, for saving me, for giving me a family again." Julian squeezed her hand. "Thank you for teaching me what family really means." Beatrix smiled. It was Clara's smile. Lily's smile, the smile that would live on in the hearts of everyone who knew her. "Take care of our girl," she said. "Always," Julian promised. Beatrix closed her eyes for the last time. And somewhere, Julian liked to believe, Clara was waiting to welcome her mother home. The Beatrix legacy continues to this day. Every safe haven has a small plaque near the entrance. It reads, "In memory of Beatrix, who taught us that no one should ever have to tap on a window for help, and no one who walks through those doors ever does." And that is where our story ends. A tale of loss and betrayal, but also of redemption and love. A reminder that family is not just about blood. It is about the people who show up when you need them most. Subscribe to see more stories like this one. And please, comment below and tell me where you are watching from. I would love to say hello to you. Your comments let me know just how far our stories are reaching, and every single one means the world to me. Thank you for being part of this journey. Until next time, take care of the ones you love. You never know when they might need you. Would you like me to help you brainstorm a different ending or perhaps write a short prequel about Clara and Julian?